Hi everybody! Usually on this channel I post grammar videos for my flipped classroom or classroom activities for ESL teachers. But right now I'm not a teacher, I'm a student. I have the opportunity to study Spanish in Spain for 2 months, and I'm documenting my experience following my own advice about language learning. Today I'm going to talk about some advice that I received in the comments section of a previous video from a viewer named Jana. She suggested that in order to review the vocabulary that I'm learning, I should write example sentences and dialogues using those words in contexts that are more familiar to me. This sounded like a great idea to me because I think it's really easy to figure out the meanings of a lot of words while you're in class and write it all down, and then you drop it and forget it once you leave the classroom, and those words don't become a part of your useful vocabulary. I want to share with you one of the examples of when I used this strategy that she recommended. We had a lesson that included a lot of new vocabulary about the smaller details about clothing, about fabrics, about small parts of clothing, and about less common types of clothing. So there was a lot of vocabulary in this lesson, and I knew I was going to need to remember it for a later class. So I sat down to try out Jana's recommendations. I ended up writing descriptions of different outfits that you would wear for different occasions, and I even drew little pictures to include all of those items. For the smaller items, I also created my own little picture dictionary, so I drew the item and wrote the name next to it. It worked really well for me to write out these descriptions of how we use clothing in different situations, and it really helped me to remember more and more of those vocabulary words. It was great to take this strategy that was recommended to me and adapt it to the language task that I was working on. It was helpful to write the sentences, but because these were mostly nouns, it was also really helpful to create pictures that I could flip through and review very easily while I was studying. I found this strategy extremely helpful. It took a little bit of extra time outside of class, but it yielded really great results. I remembered the words a lot better than I would have otherwise, and now many of them have become part of my normal vocabulary. It's become even more clear to me through this experience that the time we spend in class is not enough to really absorb the material that we're learning in class. Now, I'm studying Spanish in class for 20 hours a week, and we learn a lot and practice a lot during that time. But it's truly not enough. I need to be reviewing outside of class. Of course, I always do my homework, but I also need to do some additional studying to go over the words and the grammar and everything that we've studied during class. I think it's extremely helpful to do a lot of this studying writing by hand in a notebook instead of using a computer. Oftentimes we will create flashcards or use other technology in order to study, but there's something about writing something with your hand that helps you to remember it more clearly. And once you have things written down in your notebook, it's a lot easier to go back and review it when you have a few moments of extra time. Like when I arrive early to class and I have a few minutes, not enough to dig into studying something, but enough to flip through my vocabulary and review it. The other thing that was really helpful about this strategy was making the examples true to my life. So when I drew my pictures or wrote my descriptions, I created true pictures about what I would wear for a winter day or for going to school, or about what my husband would wear to go out for a special occasion or something like that. The same would be true for any type of vocabulary. Try to make those sentences true to something that actually happens in your life, so you can imagine how you would actually use those words in speaking or in writing. That brings me to one of my favorite language learning tips, which I'm excited to talk about soon, which is trying to use your new vocabulary words in conversation throughout the day. I often recommend this to my students, and I've started to do it a little bit myself here in Spain, but I want to do it more. Thinking about a few vocabulary words that you've learned and making a commitment to use those throughout the day. But I'll talk more about that later. If you have any recommendations for how I can maximize my language learning while I'm in Spain, I'd love to hear them in the comments, and I'll try them out and let you know how they worked for me. I hope you keep working hard on your language studies, and I will too. Bye!